Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Sisters in Service podcast. You guys know me. I'm Kat Corchado, and I want all of you to understand that this podcast is a passion project born out of my own experiences as an Air Force veteran. I understand firsthand the unique challenges and triumphs that come with serving in the military and the transition to becoming a veteran. You know, this podcast is a tribute to all our people that serve, but not just the service member, our active duty people, our veterans, our military spouses, military brats, and of course, our veteran service organizations. This platform gives us an opportunity to share, learn, and grow together, acknowledging our shared experiences and providing support and encouragement to each other. Alongside this, most of you probably already know this, but I'm also doing the Why Not Wellness podcast. It's a little snippet, 15 minutes or less, but this is a space dedicated to helping everyone rediscover their fitness fabulosity. It's a journey towards feeling good in our bodies and embracing wellness. Because I believe that our health and wellness are the pillars upon which we build our lives, especially after service. I'm incredibly grateful for the support of our sponsors. The first one is Small Space Pilates, which is an online fitness platform offering live classes in strength training, stretching, and of course, Pilates. These classes are designed to be accessible and effective no matter where you are in your fitness journey. The second sponsor is the My Sexy Business. They offer guidance and help you to own a business that doesn't own you. So let's get started with our first guest for our new season. Welcome, everyone, to the newest episode of Sisters in Service podcast. I am your host, Kat Corchado. Today, I'm honored to have a truly inspiring guest with us, Jean Ibanez Payne. Jean is not just a Navy veteran, but she's also a military sexual trauma survivor and a beacon of resilience, courage, and survival. She has taken her personal experiences and used them to wage a battle against MST. Jean's journey, as detailed in her best-selling memoir, Reclaim Your Worth, a story of abuse, empowerment, and building a life on my terms, is a testament to her strength and determination. In her memoir, she bravely shares her experiences of overcoming personal sexual trauma, discrimination, and systemic barriers in both military and corporate environments. In 2025, Jean took her advocacy to new heights by championing VA House Bill 2520 in the Virginia legislature. This bill aims to establish an independent sexual offense prevention and response program within the Virginia Department of Military Affairs to protect individuals from sexual abuse. Jean's goal is to see every state in the United States to consider establishing similar legislation. Hear, hear. I totally agree, but before we go there, hi, Jean.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast. And it's a pleasure to have you and to speak about this because it's still going on. And, you know, it's been 25 years since I've been out of the military. So I can't believe that this is still happening. It is, and we're going to speak about that today. So, Jean, I always ask my veterans and active duty military, did you pick the Navy or did the Navy pick you?
I picked the Navy because I went to the mall and literally, like most stories that you hear, everybody was out to lunch. The only guy that was there with his legs on this desk was the Navy guy. So I ended up going with the Navy.
Well, I like to tell this story. I almost went in the Navy because I thought the Navy whites were amazing. Like the dress uniform, I was like, oh, yes. And I went to the Air Force recruiter and he goes, you know, they only wear those on special occasions, right? And I was like, okay.
Always wanted to go into the Air Force, but my ASVAB scores were not high enough because English was my second language. So I ended up going to the Navy.
I went into the Air Force only because it was what I knew. I grew up in the Air Force. So I thought if I'm going to go in, I'm going to go in with what I know. And I'm glad that I did. I was happy doing that. So, Jean, let's talk a little bit about the journey that you have been through since your MST. Okay. How long had you been in the military before this happened? Actually, I'm going to backtrack. When you first went into the military, when you first went into the Navy, and I don't know if you thought this as a woman, I didn't going into the Air Force. Maybe I should have. But did you think you were going to be treated differently because you were a woman, or did you think you were on equal footing with the men that were in the Navy?
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect, especially, being born in the U.S. and raised in Colombia, South America. I came back when I was 15 years old. So the culture, Latino culture, is very much a male-dominated environment, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. So when I went into the military, I went in very much with a naive, innocent mentality. So it was very much aha moment when I started experiencing the sexual abuse.
Now, what was your job, and was it male dominated in the job? Were you like the only female that was working among all these men, or was it kind of mixed?
So I was the recipient of 20 plus instances of unwelcome sexual abuse and encounters, which ranged from, abuse, rape, assault, many different things. I enlisted in the military. English was very much my second language. I went into an environment. My first sexual harassment or assault happened literally right after boot camp. And I was not necessarily, I would say, in an environment that was, I would say it was mostly males, but people in positions of authority.
So you were the low man on the totem pole,
Very
so
much
to
so.
speak.
I was a senior recruit when I went to work in one of the offices with the highest exposure, which was directly supporting the commanding officer and executive officer of the base.
Wow. So what was going through your head the first time? Because I'm trying to think that the first time you kind of go, maybe I'm overthinking it. But then it keeps happening. And what was going through your head while this was, you said several. So after a few of these have happening, did you think you have to tell somebody? And did you know who to tell?
That's a great question. I was growing up in the Latino culture. I was sexually abused from the time I was 5 years old, and the recipient of different aspects of sexual abuse. And so when I joined the military, that's a very much of a taboo when you're growing in this Latino culture, is you don't say anything, you don't talk to anybody. And when you do speak up, typically your parents are more like to say, shh, don't say anything. That's going to make our family look really bad. So when I joined the military, I really wasn't sure what to expect. I went in really for money for college. And I did. I was 18 years old right after boot camp. I had not been in my duty station very long at all. I would say a month or so. And I did speak up, right? Because the morning that the first sexual harassment or assault happened, we had received a sexual harassment training. It was literally that morning we had all of us received. So, during that training, you are told to speak up, make sure that you denounce. So I was very much, when it happened that afternoon, it happened around 4:30 in the afternoon. Everybody had left the office, and my superiors actually were behind closed doors having a meeting, and I was left with this individual. And it happened in the next morning, I told my immediate supervisor, who was a female, and it was the biggest mistake that I made, was telling my supervisor about it, because I was treated like the offender, and the offender got away with it, even after he basically admitted to doing, doing the harassment.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, when I say ostracized, literally people would treat me like, well, you did it for attention. This person didn't do anything. I even confronted my abuser, and I asked him, I'm like, you're lying. You know, you did this. But I was literally treated like the offender. And that was the first of 2 or 3 times that I reported. And then I stopped because I was not protected. Instead of being, instead of being protected, I was ostracized. And we can get more into some of the things that happened. But I was giving alcohol by superiors. I ended up in the hospital with bruises on my legs, inner thighs, and I was giving alcohol by superiors who were twice my age, and then instead of me receiving any type of counseling, when I woke up and returned to base, I was sent to alcohol rehab, and I was.
Good Lord, are you kidding me?
I got in trouble, and the person who gave me the alcohol, nobody ever even offered me any type of counseling. They got away with it. So I just, not feeling protected, I stopped. Why continue to lose my reputation and being seen as the troublemaker or the SLUT who just gets drunk?
Yes. And that makes sense. So the training you had was pretty much just lip service. It was, we're checking the box. We have to do this per blah, 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 regulation, whatever, but they don't really follow whatever that training was. They were like, okay, did it. And then they just go do what they want. The first time that you were sexually harassed, did they relocate this person, or this person stayed in the office with you?
They stayed in the office with me. We were left here. We were in the same. It was a very confined environment. I was a young, so you're in the Navy is you're an administrative assistant, right? So you can just imagine the stereotype and the stigma that comes with, or you just am an assistant. You're a seaman recruit to talk. I was a one, and I was left in a work environment with this individual after they admitted that he exposed himself in the office. He went as far as admitting, I unzipped my pants. I did, and they sent them to do some community hours. I was left in an environment, and I was subsequently harassed by 2 more men in the same office. And I was there was no protection.
Your resilience and strength is unbelievable, because I can't even imagine, I'm not even sure what I would do, because my husband had asked me, there were several instances that came out, some of them, that were on the national news. And my husband looked at me and he goes, did anything ever like this happen to you? And I said, no, there was one person, and he would, when I was on my computer, he liked to look over my shoulder like this. And one day I just looked back at him, I go, do you mind? And I said it just like that. And he stood back, and I was like, oh, okay, that works. How long did you serve in the military, and did you get out because of everything that you went through?
I served in the Navy, 4 active and 4 inactive. Yes, after having officers and enlisted men use their position of authority to have either harass me or have sexual relations with me. Yes, I ended up leaving the military, and I held all of that um, as a private battle
Yes.
for 20 plus years. I battled
Did
with.
any other women, when you were reporting this, did any other women, even though they may or may not have reported it, did they come up to you and say, I know this is happening because it's happened to me? Or did you feel like you were in this box by yourself?
I felt like I was in a box by myself, but some of those women who were supposed to protect me, I remember them
Didn't.
being one of them saying, well, you're making this up. You just want attention.
That is so what were the years that you served, just to give our audience some frame of reference?
So I served from active from 92 to 96, and then from 96 to 2000, I served as inactive. Enough to mess me up for the rest of my life.
That's, I I'm so sorry that happened to you. I am. It's it just should never happen, ever,
Mm.
in any circumstance in the military. I don't care. Even out of the military, I don't care. It's taking advantage. And for my listeners, if I sound a little pissed off, it's because I am.
Mm.
I don't even know what to say about this. The story just angers me to a point where I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I mean, what do you do? And I noticed that you have written a book, and you've done, you've got legislation coming up. And I wanted to ask you, what needs to happen? If you could put it into play today, what needs to happen to stop this? And if this does happen, what kind of circumstances happens to the offender that you would like to see?
The cover-ups, the collusion needs to stop, because it's not just women.
Mm-hmm.
4 men and 5 women are the recipients of some type of sexual abuse every day. And nothing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are underreported by the Pentagon, and they like to celebrate the low numbers, but in reality is that they are being underreported by 2 to 4 times. Brown University did a study recently, last year it came out, where in actuality there were 75,000, but the Pentagon only reported 29. So there needs to be more accountability, and there needs to be more protection for the victims, so they can report and not fear retaliation.
Oh, man. Jean, that's such a heavy load to carry by yourself. How did you help yourself through this time?
It's funny. It's like I still tear up when you ask me that kind of question.
It's okay. Take your time.
It's a day-to-day battle. I suffer in silence from 1996 to 2016 with anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. Nobody knew what I had been through. Not even my husband. We have been together almost 30 years, and nobody knew the fight that I was fighting. And one of the things that really happened is, and that's why I call my book, Reclaim Your Worth, because I spent from 1996 to 2016, I fought the battle, right? Everybody, and everybody saw the successful. I don't know what happened.
Mhm.
I fought the battle of Jean. Jean is the. I fought the battle privately, but what everybody saw externally is that I
Mhm.
was making a six-figure job, 6 figures on my corporate world.
Mhm.
I had it all together, and I was also the recipient of sexual harassment in the corporate environment, and I was betrayed by women. I went to women and say, "This is happening to me," and instead of them protecting me, they made me work under the harasser. So I ended up leaving the corporate world, and but what I was dealing with, like I was telling you, and then I developed fibromyalgia, which I still have to this date, and but I was outsourcing my work. That meant that, yeah. So once I decided to come clean to my family in 2016, with what I was going through, I started going to, like some therapists, some psychologists, but I really didn't take it serious. I continued to suffer in silence, and I would not use any of the tools that they were giving me. And so it was very much I was going through the motions, right? And I was
Right.
thriving. I mean, if you saw Jean Payne, I was thriving I have a small business, a small company. It was doing super well, multi-million dollars. I looked like the million, like $1 million every day, and literally it wasn't until December of 2022 when everything just kind of came crashing down.
Yeah, there's usually that one, and it's not even, sometimes it's not even affiliated with it. It's one little thing, and
Yes,
it's like the exterior just shatters.
yes,
And then you have to rebuild from
yes,
there.
yes.
Did your book help any? And tell us a little bit about your book and why you wrote it and who you wrote it for.
So, so when in 2022, when basically I have the aha moment, right? This is the moment where I tell myself either I am going to take ownership of my recovery and really take it serious when I go to my psychiatrist, my psychologist, my medicine, and everything. Um, that's the day where I say either I'm going to live or I'm going to commit suicide or I'm going to die. And so that was kind of the moment for me, is that I needed to reclaim my worth. And I spent the 2023 and 2024 and January of 2025, no 2024. That's when I decided that I was ready to pour my story into a book. And I wrote my book in 1 month. 50,000 words,
Wow.
45,000 in 1 week, and the rest of the time. And I wrote my book. One was it was therapy for me, but two, I wanted to show men and women who have been sexually assaulted that it is okay to tell your story. That we should never be ashamed of speaking up, in that it is okay for us to look in the mirror every day and meet ourselves where we are. So for me, it was just really important to share my story and tell people that, what, you should never be ashamed to speak up. And it has been like a life-saving experience for me, because people are coming to me, men and women, and saying, "Thank you for writing your story. Thank you for sharing. Now I can speak up."
So it sounds like it was very cathartic for you to it got it out. It kind of cleansed you a little bit, not saying it was, complete, but it felt like you could get it out on paper and you got it out of your body on paper. I think when we hold things in, it ends up eating us from the inside out
Mhm,
until we feel like we're just a shell and we're not really worth,
mhm,
what people say we're worth.
mhm.
For anyone, male or female, active duty military specifically, what kind of advice would you give to them? Because you did what I would have done. I went to go tell somebody and you got shunned. you not shunned, you were betrayed, you were all of those things. How can someone who is active duty military be able, who do they go to? Or is it a crapshoot? Do you just hope that somebody's going to say, oh, okay, we'll help you, and then they don't?
I think it varies by command. And I would say, speak up. There are a lot more resources these days.
Yes.
If you remember Vanessa Gwillen from Texas, is now there are more independent office who handle the sexual abuse investigations. But I would also, anybody who's listening to me, there's a point where you have to decide when you're ready to reclaim your worth. For me, it was easy to blame everybody around me of why I was breaking down and why I was so broken. But not until I took ownership of my recovery, that is when healing started for me. So the first thing is really to speak up. But then second is to not be ashamed to ask for help and take ownership.
I think it's, when you talked about that independent office, I always felt like I've had other women talk about, their military sexual trauma, and I kept saying the same thing. Why isn't there an independent office on each base that is not military affiliated, meaning there aren't military people working in the office, but they're full-fledged and well and renowned, and they know about the military. They know, maybe it's a lawyer or somebody, I don't know. But you could go to them and they could keep your story, like keep your identity secret until they do what they need to do. And then because that it just doesn't make sense for you, you to tell somebody and then you get blamed for it. And I think that's so unfair on so many levels. Jean, tell us a little bit about your legislation as the Independent Sexual Offense Prevention and Response Program. How did that start?
So it really started with Vanessa. There was a similar legislation enacted in Texas, and the reason why Dallas legislation is so important, and it's important to separate that from the chain of command, is because sometimes either the people who are the offenders or people who are in cahoots with the commanding officer and executive officer are the ones who are placed in a place to conduct investigations. So you can just imagine what the outcome of that's going to be, right? And then there might be a little bit of an inconvenient truth when there's an independent office, but the idea is to prevent any collusion, right? And have a very transparent and confidential environment to protect the victim. So that's what it is. That is bottom line up front is protecting the victim's interest. So the perpetrator can be brought to justice.
One of the things I was told in the military is, if something, and I don't think they were talking about this because, or maybe they were, I don't know. But they said, always write things down, name, dates, places, what people were wearing, all of this other stuff. Do you think that that's helpful or it's not?
It was helpful for me because I used it when I was writing my book.
Yeah.
It is helpful when the first time that my incident happened right after boot camp, I was actually told, this was even by my family members, to talk about betrayal, is what did you do to deserve that? Okay. And so because when sexual abuse happens, the first thing that the natural thing for a chain of command or somebody who doesn't believe you is to try to discredit the victim. It was your fault.
Yes.
I was asked when I wrote my book, I actually had a woman ask me, she goes, if you kept getting abused and alcohol was part of the equation, why did you keep drinking? And I said, well, the people summoning me to the dark alley so they could expose their privates to me, or the people who were giving me alcohol who were almost 40 years old, and I'm 18, I'm a seaman recruit, and they are a petty officer. What do you think I'm going to say? Right? I'm going to submit. And so I always think that it is important because it's us against the world, and proving that that it did happen. It always helped to have evidence and to be able to say it happened on this date, this date, this date, and here was the outcome.
Yeah. I think one of the things that someone else had told me is like, well, what did you do to deserve that? And you're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just being me. And then you have this, you're a petty officer. No, what's he enlisted in the Navy?
Yeah, he was a petty officer.
Petty officer. And then you have
officers.
Yeah. So, and your commanding officer says, you need to do this. And you're like, okay, because you're following orders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this, huge cluster. It just like it keeps going around in a circle and in a circle, and you keep trying to get out. It's like one of those mazes, you're in a maze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're in this maze and you can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's horrible. Jean, what was your, I understand why. Okay. But how did you start to do this? Because a lot of people say, oh, well, it's easy to start legislation, but some people are like, well, how can I start something to, you know what I mean? Like, how did you go about doing this? Was it after you wrote the book and then your next step was what? To get this legislation in Virginia?
I think it was part of the healing process. I have to be ready to take the next step. As I was writing the legislation, and I'm actually still working with my delegates in Virginia, I actually have senators text me, and try to discredit me, and tell me about how my values, that what I was doing was unnecessary, that there was no issues in the in the military. So I needed to be mentally ready, and that's what I did. Is that I reclaimed my worth. I got strong by seeing my therapist, my psychologist. I'm not ashamed to say I have to take medicine every day. I have to quit, limiting the drinking, watching what I eat, doing yoga, doing Pilates. And so it's because it's nothing is never one thing, right? In order to recover, in order to heal, you need all these pieces. And so that's what I did. Is that I felt like I was in a good place. And now I'm angry. Right now, I'm ready. And I decided to write my book, decided to tell my story. What's fascinating is when you start being very vocal, and then you have to be ready to become a liability.
Yes.
For those people, the so-called friends, right? And be okay with that. So it was an evolution. It was for me to heal, to get better, to become strong. Now that I was ready, okay, let's go.
Were these senators that were trying to discredit you, did they have any military service?
Yes, male officers.
Oh my gosh. I can say that, girl, you're on fire. And I hope that whatever this is, and you said that you hope to see it in every state, I hope that happens. Because if not now, then when? And if you need backup, girl, I got you. I got you. I'll be back there.
Thank you.
Because, I consider you to be, my husband and I love dogs, and we love bulldogs in particular. And whenever someone says something to my husband, who's like 6'4", he's like 250, he's a big guy. My husband will say, "Oh, such and such said this." And I'm like, "Where is she? Where is he?" He's like, "I got you." I said, "There's nothing like being a bulldog and having a bulldog who has your back. Girl, you got a bulldog who's got your back." Because I'm at a point in my life, I don't care. I'm going to speak up and say what I need to say. And I think it's important for women to hear that, because I was one of those quiet little mouse women. I was, women are supposed to be seen and not heard. And I learned how to speak up because I was single. I was a single parent in the military, and I spoke up for my son. When my son was mistreated, in any way, shape, or form, I spoke up, and I thought, why can't I speak up for myself? And I started doing that. And you're right. You're going to lose friends. You might even lose family members because of it. But you know what? It's worth the journey, because they're going to want to come back, and you're going to be like, nope.
Yep.
We're done. Okay. We're done.
I talk about in my book. I talk about it was important for me to know my protectors, cheerleaders, and acquaintances. And I love, I love Delta. And then I will say, the way how I treat my circle is: you have first class, you got comfort, you got main. And
and don't forget the baggage in the trunk of the
exactly. So you may have the protectors, the cheerleaders, and acquaintances. It's okay. It's okay to have all of those. And you have to really realize who are those who are there to protect you.
Yes, absolutely. And, that's for any woman or any man listening. You have to know who's in your circle. You have to know who has your back. And sometimes, being in the military, I didn't have a whole lot of close friends. So I had to be my own best advocate, my own supporter, my own cheerleader, which is okay, because I am one strong woman because of it. And so I can see that in you, Jean, just everything you've been through. I'm a huge fan. I didn't know who you were at first, but now that I've heard you speak, I'm a huge fan of yours. And I hope this happens in Virginia, and I hope it happens all over the United States, because it needs to be done. And if you need signatures, you need anything, you let me know. Jean, any last words for anyone listening?
It's never too late to reclaim your worth. But it's important that you do it on your own terms. And unless you take ownership of your journey, you'll never be able to heal.
Wow, that's a mic drop right there. Jean, I want to thank you for coming on today. This was such a horrific story, but such a story of resilience on your part of, you're here to speak about this, which proves just how strong you are as a person, for you to go through what you went through and to still be here today and talk about that. And I want to thank you for being on the Sisters in Service podcast. And for anyone listening, if you are going through something, I hope that you would be able to contact someone. And wait a minute, before I go there, Jean, how can we find your book? Where's your book?
So you can go to Amazon.com or reclaimyourworthnow.com. I have an English version, I have a Spanish version, and I also released a children's book, which is called Jean and the Magnificent Mirror. And I have another book coming out here at the end of 2025, which is called Intentionally Worthy. And what I have done is, there's the adult version of Reclaim Your Worth. There's the children's version. And then the one for young adults. So you can go to Amazon.com or you can go to reclaimyourworthnow.com.
Jean, if someone's going through something and they feel as though they have no one else to speak to, or they're just looking for some advice, can you tell people kind of explain, especially if they're a veteran. Sometimes, you can go to the VA and, we're gonna leave that right there.
Mm-hmm.
But they're having problems coping with what happened to them. What can they do? Is the VA an option, or but is it possible for them to look at everything that's available to them, and then picking out one of those that maybe they can handle in such a way and take their time with it?
I dedicated a chapter to the VA in my book because, as you can imagine, that is how broken that system is. But I have been surprised that once you're able to get into the system, I have been very blessed with the services that I received. I have been assigned a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I always say, there's shelters and abuse nonprofits that are great support. But also said, finding those cheerleaders and protectors who you can go to, who I know that I can call Kat and say, Kat, I'm having a bad day today. I talk to you. It's just creating this circle of support. That is
a safe place.
A safe place that is what's going to help you heal.
Oh, I feel like I could keep talking about this, but I know that you've got to go. Like we're having a 3-hour podcast today. No, we're really not. Jean, thank you so much for being on the Sisters in Service podcast. And for anyone listening, if you are going through something, start at the VA. Don't give up. Find who your circle of people are who have your back and support you, and knowing that they're there for you. I know that it's probably hard to step out of that circle of I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so if you're feeling that way, then, I can't, Jean can, I can't, but could probably walk you through, going through the VA, what other options are available to you. And you always have people to talk to. And if you don't, there are lots of nonprofits out there that help in this realm. So Jean, thank you very much for being here today. And for everyone, please stay safe, take care of each other. Until next time, and please remember, it's never too late to start your impossible.